very interesting thing happened in around 1960. When gas chromatography was completely evolved as a sensitive, versatile, etc., technique, correct? We have seen. And the liquid chromatography people will still working on columns, on TLC plate, on paper, and GC people were going ahead, well ahead of them. Assume that the researchers in liquid chromatography were ladies. How would they feel? Any guess? Jealous? Huh? उसकी साड़ी मेरे साड़ी से सफेद क्यों? ये तो होता ही है ना? So that's exactly feeling, not exactly the same way, but feeling was very similar. That how is that people working in GC have gone ahead of us when we started in 1906 or 3, and these people just came. मराठीत म्हणा ना रे काना मागून आला तिकट झाली का झाला तसं झालं ते. So naturally there was a very keen sense of competition. You cannot find a column, just glass column in Sweet's experiment. That's why I phoned him, so I don't have to waste time. Okay. So the people who were doing research in the field of liquid chromatography thought that liquid chromatography must have the same or similar attributes as GC has. They wanted to have separation and analysis in as short time as possible. They wanted LC to be very fast, as I said, versatile, sensitive, and therefore the thought process started in their mind as to what can be done. So the first thing that they decided to go step by step. All things cannot be achieved simultaneously. Some things have to go sequentially. So first they decided we will try to reduce the time of separation and analysis. First thing. That's why I have kept this column in front of you. Just imagine this column made up of glass filled with the slurry or stationary phase, everything as in the Sweet's experiment. What we are going to do today and next 1.5 days is to relive the development process that must have occurred from 1960 to 1980, because it took 20 years for a commercial liquid chromatograph to come in the market. So let us imagine what must have happened during those 20 years, and that cannot happen without your participation. So your participation in these 2.5 days is of great importance. Without that, we cannot relive history of development of LC. Correct? So my first question, look at the column, always have a look at the column. And now I'm in 1960, I want first to tackle the problem of reducing the time of separation. What would I do? What is the first solution that occurs in your mind? Reduce the length of the column, she says. Reduce? Change the mobile phase. So reduce the length of the column, change the mobile phase. So by changing the mobile phase, will I be able to reduce the separation time? To some extent, yes. But I want to reduce from few hours to few minutes. GC is my enemy now. I want to reach them, kill the GC interest and prove that LC is more important than GC. So this will reduce time from, let us say, 5 hours to 4 hours. But my aim is not achieved. I want in few minutes. Any solution?
Increase mobile phase velocity.
Increase mobile phase velocity. Absolutely right. Yes. Absolutely right. Increase mobile phase velocity, migration velocity, so that the time taken for travel of the solutes through the column will be reduced. How would you do that? How would you increase the mobile phase velocity? Huh? Who said? Yes. Absolutely right. So, pressure. Where would you apply pressure?
Injection of the mobile phase.
Where?
So during introduction of the mobile phase, we can
Okay.
apply pressure.
Agreed. During the introduction of the mobile phase, you would like to increase the pressure on the mobile phase or on the column so that the mobile phase moves faster as he wanted it to happen. Agreed. There is another solution also. Just think of it. Which will be at the other end of the column. Imagine, instead of your suggestion, I would like to try something at this end of the column. Can I do it? Suction pump. My God. Yes. Suction pump, that is, you apply vacuum. Is it not? So if you apply vacuum, definitely you can increase the rate of flow of mobile phase. Now when you compare these two options, application of vacuum, application of pressure, which according to you is more easy to control? Vacuum? Sure? Who says pressure? Yeah. So there are two distinct opinions. They were there. We are giving a history. I am not talking of today. So they had two options: application of vacuum and increasing the pressure. Fine. What are the advantages and disadvantages that we will consider now? If you apply vacuum and after your separation is over, you have to naturally disconnect the vacuum pump. When you do that, it is found that air enters into the column. And just like in GC you have seen, presence of moisture is not advisable. Similarly, in liquid chromatography, presence of air in the stationary phase is not advisable. It gives exactly the same effect as presence of moisture in GC. So would you prefer vacuum? Your suggestion was good. Whereas in case of pressure, you can go on reducing it slowly without any danger of entry of air bubbles in the stationary phase. So with your help, therefore, we have come to a solution of passing the liquid mobile phase through the column under pressure. How much pressure? Because in the beginning, it is moving under 1 atmospheric pressure, right? How much would you like to increase that? Say anything. Huh? 2 atmospheres? 2. Where is that greedy girl? It is not there. So, 3 atmospheres, she says. I guess you will say that. No? So how much? Come on. You are not happy even with 3.
Pressure which increases the velocity molecules or atoms of mobile phase.
Correct. But how much pressure you would like to have? Yes?
It depends upon the gel. It should not destroy the column.
No. Once you apply pressure, it does not disturb the column. Correct? So you can apply 1 atmosphere, it's already there. Then maybe 2, the velocity
The
increases.
pressure slowly increase
I understand that. Slowly only, एकदम मैं home country. लेकिन problem ये है कि कितना चाहिए आपको?
So it depends on the packing of the column.
No, what is your aim? Your aim is to reduce the time from 5 hours to, let us say, 30 minutes is your aim. So you will apply pressure which will give you that separation time. It could be 5 atmospheres, could be 10, could be 15, could be also 50 atmospheres. Doesn't matter. My end point is my separation or analysis must be over in 30 minutes instead of 5 hours. So as she rightly said, go on increasing it slowly till you achieve your goal of reducing the time. Right? Let us say it is 10 atmospheres. What is the material of the column? What is the material? That column is made up of glass. And you are talking about 10 atmospheric pressure. What will happen? So where is separation? There is no separation. So this was the next query in front of them. That's fine, increase the pressure. We'll have some system to increase the pressure. But then, beyond certain limits, glass is strong enough, but beyond certain limit, it will simply break. Then what? Huh? So instead of glass, what would you like theoretically? A column material which will be able to withstand these high pressures. Logical. If glass doesn't work, it doesn't stop there. We will find an alternative which will give us a strong mechanical strength so that the column material will be able to withstand higher pressures on mobile phase. And you can immediately think of a metallic column. Instead of glass column, you can think of a metallic column. Now you have aluminium, very cheap and mechanically very strong. You have copper column, very strong mechanically. Which one you will choose? Copper, aluminium, or you can have both? Yes or no? Either or, yes. Either or, right? If aluminum is not available, you will say, forget about aluminum, go for copper. Both are mechanically strong. Will that be your right choice of a column material? Loudly now you have to say today. No. Yes or no? No. Why not?
Because it can react.
Huh?
It is not chemically
Yes?
It is not chemically inert.
Absolutely right. Either aluminium or copper is not chemically inert, and that is in fact the basic condition of our column material, that it should not interact with the solutes, with the solvents, with the stationary phase. It has to be chemically inert. On the other hand, both aluminium and copper in acidic or basic solutions will form some compounds which will also come out, or which will mix with the solutes in the sample and will not be desirable situation. Fine. Then what? Again, see, every time now it is going to be this way. If not this, what next? Stainless steel. Is the right choice. Why? Stainless steel column are chemically inert and mechanically very strong. Agreed? So you have solved that problem yourself of decreasing the analytical time by increasing ratios on the mobile phase and also substituting glass as a material of the column to stainless steel, which is chemically inert and mechanically very, very strong. Now concentrate on the column again. In the beginning, in Mikhail Sweat's experiment, imagine that again. The mobile phase was moving under atmospheric pressure. Now instead of same experiment, but we have a stainless steel column, and now the solutes, the same 5 solutes are moving under pressure of mobile phase, and that too, instead of taking 5 hours, they are taking just 30 minutes. What is going to be the effect as far as separation is concerned?
The solutes which reduce first.
Overlapping peaks, he says. Overlapping peaks, he also says. Why? Why overlapping peaks?
Retention time will decrease.
Sorry?
Retention time will decrease.
Retention time will be decreased.
So there will be a cable baseline is removed.
Any other thing, logically you can think you are right. In a sense, what you are saying is right, because they are moving faster, so resolution will be affected, separation will be affected. But what is the logical thing?
The 2 solutes may separate together or they may come out.
That's what he is saying. Resolution will be poor. 5 solutes will not be separated as 5 bands. Maybe 1 band, or maybe 2 or 3, but not 5, certainly not 5. But what is the reason why? I'll give you a hint. Now this is our what? 3 plus 3, 6, 7th day of lectures. Imagine all these lectures of 7 days I would have completed on one day, starting from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening. You all sitting here with some gap of evening. What will happen? Will it be absorbed after a certain time? Now these poor solutes, you are making them to travel through the stationary phase in 30 minutes. What used to be 5 hours. So do you think there will be effective interaction of solutes with the stationary phase? If there is no sufficient time given for solute molecules to interact with the stationary phase, how are they going to be separated? So they are not going to be separated. Then what? Is the question. So it means that your separation efficiency has been reduced considerably. Analytical time in a way is reduced, but just pushing these solute molecules through the column, that is why. Separation efficient as it used to be. So separation, column separation efficiency has been compromised, has been considerably reduced. As a chromatographer, would you like that situation? Okay, then what? Yes? Change the stationary phase, he says. Okay, I'll change from, let us say, calcium carbonate to alumina. Will it achieve our goal? of again getting good separation? By changing the stationary phase. So that's why I am again giving you a hint
Increase the
that there is a decrease in the column separation efficiency. So what should be your aim now? To increase the column separation efficiency, logically. Now you know how it can be increased.
Increase the length of the column.
Yes? One by one, loudly. What are the ways of improving column separation efficiency?
Increase the height of the column.
Increase. Decrease, okay. Okay.
Increase the length of the column.
Increase the length of the column, yes. Any other thing?
So increase the surface area of station
Increase the surface area of the stationary phase. How
by
can you do?
decreasing the molecule size.
By decreasing the particle size. See, we have solutions. By then, theory of chromatography was understood in 60s. GC was evolved. So these things were not new. And therefore, the next logical point that should come in your mind is, okay, the column separation efficiency has been reduced. I want to restore it or increase it. And the ways of increasing is, we have already played with the mobile phase velocity, so that option is out. So the only two options left are increase the length of the column or decrease the particle size. Correct? So decreasing the particle size seems to be a better option, and if it doesn't work, then increasing length coupled with that also could be a solution. So if our particle size initially was 100 micron diameter, we will reduce it to, let us say, 50, maybe 25 or 10 micron diameter, whereby although the solutes are moving faster through the column, because of the larger surface area of the stationary phase now available to them, they will be in a position to interact with the stationary phase sufficiently to give back our original column separation efficiency. So one problem is solved, one more problem is solved. But then it's not the end of the story, right? In what way the liquid phase exists on the surface of inert solid support that we have thought so far? How is that liquid held on the surface of inert solid support? What forces are holding? There must be some forces, na, between the surface and the liquid which is being, what type? Yeah? Surface? Adsorption. So it is a physical coating. It's a physical coating through process of maybe adsorption or some additional forces, but they are of physical in nature. Because we are not conducting any chemical reaction when we are coating that liquid on the surface. We have said that take a concentrated solution of a suitable liquid and dissolve in a volatile solvent and put on the top of the surface by rotating the round bottom flask. Is there any chemical reaction? No. Now imagine that this stationary phase is filled in your stainless steel narrow bore. Who said narrow bore? You wanted to increase the efficiency, you said? Somebody said yes. So narrow bore is the correct solution. So instead of having such a broad column as shown in the figure, we will have narrow, what you had seen a gas chromatographic column, packed column. Compared to this, that was a narrow bore column. After the break, I will bring one column, LC column, to show you how it looks like. Fine. So we have a narrow bore stainless steel column with high mechanical strength and chemical inertness, filled with the stationary phase, liquid stationary phase, coated on the surface of, let us say, 10 micron diameter stationary phase particles. And through that column now, your mobile phase is moving under high pressures of 10, 20, 50 atmospheres. Imagine this situation. To get my point, over a physically coated stationary liquid phase, the mobile phase is moving under tremendously high pressure of the order of 10, 15, 20 or maybe 50 atmospheres. What will happen? This two chocolates for this answer. Huh?
The stationary phase will be replaced, it will elute out.
The liquid phase will be
The stationary phase will elute out, it will be replaced
replaced by what?
by the mobile phase.
Mobile phase, yes. Under such tremendously high pressures, the liquid which is coated physically will be stripped off or will be dissolved in the mobile phase. And what will be left behind? What will be left behind is a bare surface of stationary phase particles. So where is going to be the partitioning chromatography happening? So you have solved the problem of time, the strength of the mechanical strength of the column, the narrow bore column, and you have reduced the time, you have increased the column separation efficiency which was reduced earlier, but now you are faced with the problem that my liquid stationary phase coated simply gets either dissolved or physically removed. Then what? There has to be a solution, no? You cannot stop it in the research and development. You will always come across as obstacles. It's not like a protocol given to you and you conduct experiment in the laboratory. Never. You go on solving one problem, 10 questions come. You try to answer 10, 20 more will come. And it is in this process that the research develops. And that is why it is called research and development activity. If you had ready-made solutions for every problem you undertake, there is no research. Everything is standard. This is not so. Think of it.
Sir, choose the liquid which can withstand the pressure or decrease the pressure.
I cannot decrease the pressure because I have already said I want 50 atmospheres.
Stationary phase.
You have agreed. Now don't go back.
The stationary phase must be strong enough to bear that pressure.
Correct. Stationary coated liquid
Yes.
must be
Strong.
strongly adhered to the surface. Right? Yeah. Agreed. Logically what you say is correct. Practically how can we do it?
Bind it use of a
Huh?
gel.
Sorry.
Gel-like matrix can be used in our cellulose.
No, basic of ours is silica base. Right? It is a silica base. I'll give you 1 minute till I adjust my presentation. If you cannot coat it physically, somehow she doesn't know at present. She said you fix the stationary liquid phase very strongly, and her suggestion is absolutely right. Agree? What exists in chloroform molecule? I am taking just one example. Chloroform molecule between carbon, hydrogen and chlorine. 3 chlorine atoms are CHCl3, right? So carbon is there. How do I go about explaining in what way CH, that is H, and CCl bonds are formed?
Covalent bond.
Covalent bond. It is chemical bond. Is it easy to break? So covalent bonds, or we will say bond, chemical bond. NaCl, it is ionic bond, right? And therefore, extending her logic, 5 number slide. Go to 5. Yeah. Project. So we will have to have a chemical bond between the liquid stationary phase and the surface of the inert solid support. And if we can do that, then there is nothing like it, because even under high pressures of 50 atmospheres, chemical bond cannot be broken. And our stationary liquid phase, therefore, will remain attached to the surface of particles, because we know chemical bond cannot be broken by physical forces. And therefore, what we need now is, instead of physically coated liquid stationary phases, we want chemically bonded liquid stationary phases. Let us revise this through the following slides, one by one. Right? See what I have done throughout presentation. Did you take it the GC yesterday? Yes. So if you have gone through, and you should go through that carefully, I have just made the presentation in such a way. I asked myself question and I have answered. So it is in a sequence to understand and to have clarity on the subject of chromatographic separation, GC, and now yes. Yes. So we started today's discussion with gas chromatography attributes, that in 1960 when it came out, the liquid chromatographers knew that GC can do fast analysis, it can be efficient, high resolution, sensitive, and then non-destructive, except when FID is used, flame is used. Otherwise, it is non-destructive in nature, highly accurate, and then requires very small samples in microliters, reliable and relatively simple, and this point is still to be clarified. I will do that. Relatively inexpensive, and of course versatile. These were the attributes of GC which were bothering the people working in liquid chromatography. Correct? This is how we started. Next. Then this was the paper. Yes. So it's interesting to visualize the sequence of efforts that must have taken place during the development of modern liquid chromatography. That's what we said. Step by step we go. Next. First, imagine what the researchers could have done on the process of reducing separation time. So what researchers did, you only explain to me. Next. So what are the options? The options are, the solutes must move faster through the stationary phase. You only suggested. And to achieve this, what are the options? Next. Go on. Once I read out. So we can achieve faster migration velocities by applying vacuum as I said, but it creates problems afterwards. Or high pressure, right? And when we talk about high pressure, the vacuum is released, we said, stationary phase has air bubbles in it. And so, how high pressure? So you only said 5, 10, and I said, okay, you can go up to 50 also. So, any pressure higher than 1 atmosphere up to 50, and see, nowadays we express that in terms of pounds per square inch, PSI. So it is 500 to 5,000. So you can have relationship between atmosphere and, so 50 atmosphere is 5,000 PSI, pounds per square inch. Right. Now, chromatographic separation, glass is the column, and that was our first difficulty. And we said, fine, if glass is not suitable, then we go in for metallic, like copper or aluminium. Aluminium or copper, but you only said they are chemically not inert. And therefore, we said, if copper and aluminium, which are strong metals, cannot work, then we go ahead with the stainless steel. And one more suggestion came that if you are using stainless steel, then use better narrow bore stainless steel column and not large bore stainless steel column. Right. Then our question was, will it appear, give the same separation efficiency? The answer was no. And therefore, we said column separation efficiency will be reduced and we will not be able to achieve good separation of solutes. But if the main aim of chromatography is to achieve good separation of solutes from their mixture, then we must improve column separation efficiency. And you only suggested mobile phase velocity is out of question. Then only two alternatives: length, somebody says increase, somebody said decrease particle size. We agree. Reducing particle size. Narrow bore. Whose suggestion was that? Very good. Then was the question, can physically coated stationary phases withstand high pressures? And we said, no, absolutely no. They can be removed by dissolution and or by physical removal. And therefore, next, what is an alternative? And then she suggested, she is a QIBSc student, by the way, of 5-year integrated course. So that you should derive some encouragement from her. It's a logical thinking. I don't want exact solution, but you should have analytical mind to go in the right direction. And when you complete your MSc, when you complete your PhD program also, and go for an interview, nobody expects from you that you know everything. During the interview, what is important, or for any research guide, what is important, that you should have analytical. And if you have that, your research guide or your boss in industry can mold you properly so that you become a good achiever. Right. So a chemical bond is highly stronger than physical bond, and therefore suggestion came that instead of physically bonded liquid stationary phase, we should have chemically bonded liquid stationary phase. Right. Now if it's suitable liquid, now in gas chromatography you have understood what is a suitable liquid. It's non-polar liquid with no chemical reactivity, higher ability to withstand higher pressure, being good solvent, all these, that is means a suitable liquid. Similarly, in modern liquid chromatography also, there is a suitable liquid, and chemically treated particles have free, let us see now. Next, show the picture, chemical reaction. Yes, please concentrate on this. Up to this, everything is clear? Okay. Now in this slide, I have shown silica particle, and on the surface of silica particle are free silanol groups. SiOH groups are called silanol group. COH is what? Alcohol. Alcoholic group, right? Hydroxyl group. Hydroxyl group. This is silanol. And SiOH groups are throughout the sphere of, on the surface of a spherical particles of stationary phase. So that is of great advantage. So what has happened? The initial experiments were conducted when these silanol groups were chemically bonded to, were they bonded to methanol? No. Ethanol having two carbon atoms, C2,5OH. No. They chose, because we wanted suitable liquid phase. So they chose very long chain aliphatic alcohols. How many carbon atoms? Maybe 8 or more than 10, which is the hydroxyl group, alcoholic group. So they chose to chemically interact such long chain alcoholic molecules with the SiOH molecules which are present on the surface of these particles. Next, like this, a chemical reaction taking place, elimination of water molecule, giving a bond SiOR. There is a carbon. So the real bond IOC. The bond is SiOC. Now you have a chemically bonded stationary phase, desired particle size 10 micron, built in the column, stainless steel. You are happy? Completely happy? No. There is a question mark. So my questions now here, folks, will be, are you happy as a chromatographer that this is what you have obtained? You should be happy, no? At least a part of the problem is solved. Is it not? Till further questions come in your research program. So your answer should be, well, yes, for the time being, we are happy. Are you happy? For the time being, you are happy because you have chemically bonded liquid stationary phase. Now, when this is filled inside the column, the only disadvantage of this is it can withstand only acidic solution. If the mobile phase pH is more than 8, 7.58, this bond breaks, is hydrolyzed, and you get back your SiOH plus alcohol, ROH. But still, you can work in acidic solutions. With acidic buffered mobile phases, you are still in a position to separate the solutes from a mixture. So are you happy or not? When I have described this limitation, have you changed your answer from, for the time being, yes, to no? Why are you not happy? Come on.
Base cannot be separated. Basically,
Any specific? Yes, you are right on the right track.
Will become selective chromatograph.
Selective in a sense.
Specific to only acidic some
Right. So as a chromatographer, you have restriction that okay, it can withstand high pressures of mobile phase, but restriction that your pH, pH of your mobile phase cannot be more than 6.5. And nobody, no researchers would like to be bound by restrictions, because there may be situations where you will have to use basic mobile phases. And in basic phase, this dissolves, this gets hydrolyzed. Then what? Okay.
Silicate bond
Huh?
silicate.
And logically, you tell me logically, don't tell me the direct solution, because we don't know. We are reliving the history. That's why I am going step by step. I could have described it in 15 minutes and finished. Is it not? But that is not way of understanding.
Change the chemical composition so that even basic.
Exactly. Logically, why only alcohols? You chemically bond something else, right? Something else. You are accumulating lot of trouble. Something else. This is what is analytical mind. She doesn't know what, correct? At present, she doesn't know what. But obviously the answer is, logical answer is, change from alcohol to something which will be stable from acidic to basic media. Right? Okay, let us see. What was the next step taken by them? Right? Yes. Okay. Back to ROH and SiOH in basic media. Next. Yes. Now you have here not long chain alcohol, right? But you have a long chain of carbon atoms, see, C1 to C18, 18 number of carbon atoms. So the last group is CH3 because there is a hydrocarbon. And on this side you have, see, basically your starting molecule is SiH4. What is CH4 called? Methane. This is called silane because it is carbon is replaced here by silicon atom, SiOH4. Now when one of the hydrogens is replaced, let us say this is replaced by a methyl group, what will be its name now? Methyl silane. Is it not? Methyl silane. I can also remove the second atom, hydrogen atom, and add CH3. Dimethyl silane. Right. I replace this atom with atom of chlorine. Chloro dimethyl silane. Correct? And then I will replace the fourth hydrogen atom with a hydrocarbon chain. Now what will be there? H, 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 CH, CH, and last one will be CH3. So throughout the chain attached to the silicon atom, there are only CC, carbon-carbon, and carbon-hydrogen bonds. Now, if this molecule, which contains chlorine atom at one end, is reacted with the free silanol groups, next, what will happen? Let us see. So, HCl is removed, and now you have a bond SiO-Si. There is no SiO carbon. So, your suggestion is well taken. Instead of SiO carbon, we have now SiO-Si. Two silicon atoms, two oxygen atoms. And this chemical bond is hydrolytically, that is pH, stable right from acidic to 9.5 pH. Are you happy now? For the time being, you should say that. Are you happy now? For the time being? Yes. Now this is chemically bonded stationary phase, which is hydrolytically also stable over wide pH range. Has this solved your problem of separation of solutes from the sample? Please remember what I had told. The long chain of carbon atoms contains what type of bonds? CC and CH is a hydrocarbon. Now tell me, are you happy that to have this as your liquid stationary phase, mechanically strong, hydrolytically also very stable?
Sir, if it is hydrocarbon chain, then it is a polar.
Pori?
Non-polar, non-polar.
Mala Dharka Badla, I lost 1 feet of my hand.
Non-polar.
It is? So?
So non-polar solvents like this or like.
Okay.
So the polar solvent.
Very well. Okay. So she has realized after I gave hint twice that the side chain, that is which is a liquid, that is the liquid part. This is liquid, chemically bonded to the surface of stationary phase, silica surface, and because the liquid bonded is containing only CC and CH bonds, obviously it is a hydrocarbon, it's a non-polar, and therefore it will be able to separate mixtures of non-polar solutes only. Are you happy? Very politically stable and chemically bonded liquid stationary phase, and you are forcing us to use it only for separation of mixtures of non-polar solutes. So why you are not happy now? It is specific for non-polar solute separation only. So what? So what? So polar solutes cannot be separated using this. So again, what next?
Replace the hydrogen atom. Replace the hydrogen atom with a polar.
With
a polar molecule.
yes. So you bring about changes in the chain of the molecule which is chemically bonded suitably and introduce polar groups like OH or NH2 or semipolar groups like cyano. Given. Agreed. So now I have chemically bonded liquid stationary phase. Please listen to me carefully. Chemically bonded liquid stationary phase, hydrolytically stable over wide pH range with desired polarity. You can have non-polar, you can have highly by introducing amino group or OH group, or you can have semi-polar by introducing cyano group. So I will just summarize that having now liquid phase of desired polarity, hydrolytic stability, bonded chemically to the surface of the stationary phase particles, you have no restrictions of separating only non-polar, polar or semi-polar. You can do everything. Are you happy now? Yes. Empathetic? Yes. Well, I will make you unhappy anyway. Okay. There is one unclaimed here. Okay. Change of positions during break. Okay. Exchange. Fine. So look at this statement now. Why you said, okay, you are happy now, that with the availability of C18, that is 18 carbon chain, which is non-polar, cyano, which is semi-polar, and amino groups, chemically bonded liquid stationary phase. Now we will be able to separate non-polar, semi-polar, and polar solid mixtures of diverse nature through the process of liquid extraction. Right? In addition to this, the further developments took place. And in fact, you should not be completely happy. Suppose you have ionic solutes, then can your C18 or cyano or amino stationary phase will be able to separate? It will not be able to separate. So for mixture of ionic species, you will have to have an ion exchanger. Fine. If this is the answer, that you want an ion exchanger built inside the stainless steel narrow bore column, that's a good solution. But I will have some difficulty which I will share with you. That when you prepare either an anion or cation exchange column in the laboratory, the normal procedure is that you take, those are the beads, you see, beads soaked, they are soaked in water overnight. As a result of which, the beads swell to their maximum capacity, and the swollen beads of the stationary anion or cation exchanger, they are filled inside a glass column, and you use ion exchange chromatography. Can we use the same ion exchangers in our stainless steel narrow bore column? Yes or no? If yes, why? If no, why?
No, because it is corrosion.
Yes?
It will cause corrosion of stainless.
Stainless steel is chemically not. Huh? Yes.
So it will block the pores of the station.
Sorry?
So the beads will block the stationary phase.
No, the size, see, beads will have the same size of, let us say, 5 or 10 microns. But if you fill these beads which we normally use in chemistry lab are not mechanically strong. So under high pressures, the bead will be converted into powder. So mechanical strength being very low of these styrene-based polymers, they will not be able to withstand the high pressures. And therefore, a development took place wherein you have a glass bead, 5 micron or 10 micron diameter glass bead. So the solid mechanical strength is solid. And the surface of that glass bead is chemically bonded to either a cation exchanger or an anion exchanger. So they are now chemically bonded. They are called as pellicular, P-E-L-L-I-C-U-L-A-R, pellicular. So whenever you refer to pellicular stationary phases, it is almost clear that the central part is a glass bead and it is the surface which is coated with a suitable liquid phase. Here, in case of ionic solute separation, we have either chemically bonded cation exchanger or chemically bonded anion exchanger, which is filled inside. The only limitation of these pellicular phases is that since only the surface is coated, the capacity of these stationary phases is highly limited. If the other porous particles of same diameter, which is coated chemically bonded, they have capacity of, let us say, 10. These will have only 1 or 2. But then, at the cost of decrease of capacity, we have tremendous advantage of having high resolving power, high resolution with these pellicular stationary phases. There are also phases which were developed for size exclusion chromatography with pore size, different pore size, and chemically bonded. These pores, these particles develop with different porosity. Some with 5 micron pores, some other phase with 10 micron, maybe 2 micron, different, which can withstand high pressures of mobile phase, and they can be filled in the stainless steel column and used for separation of molecules depending on differences in their molecular sizes, size excluded. Adsorbents also can be filled, which are mechanically very strong. Adsorbents of that particular particle size, 5 to 10 microns, also can be filled, and we have adsorption chromatography. So, one by one, just read it out. We have, therefore, chemically bonded pellicular phases for cation and anion exchanger to separate ionic solutes. Adsorbing material for adsorption chromatography, and you have porous using polymeric stationary phase particles with approximately same pore size. It's possible to separate mixtures of polymers, that is of high molecular weight. And the affinity chromatography also can be, these stationary phases for affinity chromatography can be also used in up 5 to 10 micron diameter. Yes. So, you read this. At this stage, we can say that combination of pumping systems capable of giving liquid mobile phase flow under high pressures and chemically bonded liquid stationary phases with desired polarity, pore size, and their hydrolytic stability over acidic to basic pH range has allowed us to achieve faster analytical times and versatility of separating solutes with diverse nature. Do you agree? Diverse nature, polar solutes. Then high molecular weight compounds can be separated. Then non-polar, semi-polar, ionic, everything. Yes. Let us ask one question here. So questions are there. Do our pumping systems give us pulseless flow? See, if you remember that that incident, I asked that strong person to push me, and he just pushed me. Didn't push me continuously like this, right? So, if there is a pump like a square box, imagine. One side, a piston is there, which can move forward and backward. And on the top, you have the solvent reservoir from which solvent is filled inside the chamber. We'll call it as the chamber. Instead of imagining, I'll just draw a rough picture. Let us say this is a box which is called chamber. There is a piston. There is mobile phase can be filled from this end, and this is the pump. That is column. Column. Okay. There is a valve here. There is a valve here, and both the valves open in one direction only. So they are unidirectional valves. Now when this chamber is empty, this valve opens. This is from reservoir. This valve that time is closed. And chamber is filled with mobile phase. Once the chamber is filled with mobile phase, this valve is closed, the piston moves in the forward direction, this valve opens, and the mobile phase goes onto the column. And then the cycle is repeated. Piston goes back, chamber filled, piston moves ahead, again comes back, and so on and so on. So if this type of pump, piston pump, we use, what disadvantage is associated with this, if at all it is disadvantage associated? Can you just imagine? I will just describe this. Piston is here to begin with. Reservoir, from reservoir, this valve opens, reservoir is filled, that time this valve is closed. Once this is filled, chamber is filled, this piston moves, this valve is closed, this is open, and the mobile phase under pressure moves on to the column. When entire phase has moved, then piston moves back, this valve is closed, again this valve is open. What is the disadvantage according to you? Time consuming,
mobile will create a flow under the same pressure always.
What she says that by this pump, mobile phase does not move continuously through the column. It is like a pulse, right? One pulse, piston goes back. And during this time of piston going back and reservoir being filled, there is no flow of mobile phase. And then the second and the third. So if you plot a graph, then of mobile phase versus the time, you will get this pulse. Second pulse, third pulse. As a chromatographer, is it acceptable to you? You want a continuous flow of mobile phase under pressure. This pump doesn't give that. It gives under pressure, but doesn't give continuous flow of mobile phase under pressure. Then what? Again, then what? Should come out with a good solution. Yes, please. Come on, come on.
There will be continuous flow.
Yes? You said something? Please say loudly.
So continuous flow of the mobile phase should be there so that there is no pulse, there is no disturbance in the...
Correct. That is what is ideally expected. Now, this pump doesn't give me that. That's why I'm asking. Then what? If this pump can give me pressure, the mobile phase under pressure, fine enough. But doesn't give continuous flow, it gives pulsating flow. How can you overcome this problem of pulsating flow of mobile phase? See, you have mother, you have father. You go to mother and ask for pocket money. She says no. What do you do? Go to father. Right? Can you extend that analogy here?
Can we use an electric motor?
Right?
Can we use an electric motor instead of a piston?
No, she is my mother, let us say. She doesn't give me continuous flow. Then what?
Plus the pump is another solution which will give the continuous flow to the
Right, absolutely right. See, if one pump cannot do my job, I can have another pump,
which will give the continuous.
but arranged in such a way that when the piston of one pump goes behind, back, the piston of the other pump will move ahead. So,
Chain of pistons.
correct? And therefore, if I have two reciprocating synchronized pumps, synchronized, otherwise both of them should not, piston should not move ahead simultaneously. That situation is not desirable. Both mother and father coming, oh, take this, go for shopping. You will not enjoy that. Somebody has to say no, somebody has to say yes. So, piston of one pump moves ahead when the chamber is full, by which time the chamber is filled of the other pump. Then the piston of the other pump moves, by which time the piston of this pump moves behind. This is the system called synchronized piston pumps. Synchronized. But even with synchronized piston pumps, reciprocating piston pumps, there is some small pulse always involved. It cannot be eliminated even by two synchronized pumps. And for which they found a very easy solution. I will show that figure there. What is called as solvent loop. There is a solvent loop of about 5 or 10 microliter, and whenever there is a gap of this, the loop, whatever volume is in the loop also goes, and you get a continuous flow of liquid mobile phase. Naturally, you will ask me, are these piston pumps the only solution to chromatographic, modern chromatographic separation, so that they only are used? Well, no. In the beginning, in fact, they came late. In the beginning, there were some pneumatic pumps, syringe pumps, and we are going to see now what they were, because hardly they are used these days, and how these synchronized pump, piston pumps, are frequently used in most of the modern liquid chromatographic instruments. Next. Yes, go ahead. Yes. So, these are the basic requirements of liquid chromatographic pumping system. For example, ability to mix solvents and vary polarity of mobile phase during run, like isothermal versus temperature programming. You have seen that? Isothermal, constant temperature throughout the separation. Temperature programming, depending on our program, we can change the temperature. Similarly, in liquid chromatography also, we have isocratic, same. So mobile phase composition remains the same, iso, throughout the experiment. So we call that an isocratic mode of separation. Or solvent programming. Temperature programming, here it is solvent programming. In this solvent programming, you can have, let us say, 100% water to begin with. Then you say, mix it with the other, which is acetonitrile or methanol or tetrahydrofuran. Right? First 5 minutes, 100% water, then 100% plus 90% per 10% acetonitrile, and go on changing this. So this is solvent programming. So pump should be in a position, it is said, to mix solvents. Then unlimited solvent reservoir. It's not that you have certain 100 milliliters, and when you get that is over, you have to fill that again, and then temporarily you have to stop. It cannot happen. It should not happen. Generation of pressures up to 6,000 psi, pounds per square inch. Then flow rates ranging from 0.1 to 10 milliliters per minute. That pump should be able to do that. Flow reproducibility 0.5% or better. Like what we say, temperature in the GC of 3 components must be maintained within plus minus 0.1. So also here the flow rate, whatever you fix, should not vary more than plus minus 0.5%. And resistance to corrosion, obviously, chemically inert, and then pulse-free output, pulse-free output. These are the conditions of an ideal pumping system in liquid chromatography. Now there are 3 basics that we will consider. Pneumatic pumps. Pneumatic pump has to do something with air pressure. Or motor-driven syringe type of pumps, or reciprocating pumps, which we have just described briefly. Yes. Let us see. Pneumatic pumps have great advantage. In the beginning they were used when the modern liquid chromatography was being developed. That they are very simple in operation. They are inexpensive and pulse free, no pulse. Yes, next. But disadvantages, limited capacity, and in fact ideally we want unlimited capacity of reservoir, but it has limited. Then limited pressure up to only 2000 psi, not 6000 psi, and not amenable to gradient elution. It cannot be used where you want gradient elution, that is mobile phase gradient elution. Next. Yes, this is how it looks like. Solvent is filled. Okay. Now once solvent is filled, look at the gas inlet. So gas is introduced from the top, and therefore it brings pressure on the liquids. And there is a tube right from the bottom of this chamber, solvent chamber, going to the solvent outlet, to the column. So you increase the pressure on the mobile phase, and under that pressure, the mobile phase moves under high pressure, goes to the column. But the limitation, once this solvent is over, you have to fill that again. So go back to disadvantages. Limited capacity, now you can understand. Once you fill it, it is over, you have to fill it again. Pressure is only 2000 because you are using the gas or air to bring about the pressure on the solvent front. And then not amenable to, how can you gradient when you have filled in only one solvent? You can fill in the mixture of solvents, but still during the separation you cannot change the composition of the mobile phase. Go back. Advantage is simple. Is it not simple? Inexpensive? Nothing so great about it. You need a cylinder, gas cylinder, where the gas is filled under pressure, like nitrogen, a syringe, pulse free, because there is no pulse. Continuously, as long as you keep the pressure constant on that solvent front, there is no pulse. But disadvantage is again limited capacity, pressure, and not being able to use. Gradiently show that figure again. Yes, please you can have a look. Solvent reservoir, gas inlet, from the top there is a pressure, and as a result of pressure, solvent moves through this tube to the bottom. Clear? Next. Now there is motor driven syringe pump. There are advantages. Again, it's very simple. You'll see that. Inexpensive, like your earlier pneumatic pump. Pulse free, like pneumatic pump. But disadvantages, limited capacity again, and not amenable to gradient elution. So in the initial development stages of modern liquid chromatography, these pumps were used because they were not greedy like you are. They didn't want straight away 6000 psi. They were happy, okay, it's better than nothing, something better than nothing. Next. See here, non-pulsating system. A is the syringe, B is the seal, so that there is no leakage. C is gearing, with the help of gear. It's a motor driven, it's a piston only. So once the cylinder is filled, I mean the chamber is filled, the piston is driven, single piston is driven forward, and then capacity is limited, but there is no pulse, and also you do not reach that high pressure of the mobile phase. But look at it, it's very simple. Next. Reciprocating. Internal volume is very small, high output pressure up to 10,000 psi, theoretically. Normally we don't use that high. Readily adaptable for gradient elution and unlimited solvent reservoir. So whatever ideally you want is available, but are they inexpensive? Have I said they are inexpensive? They are expensive, obviously. You have to pay cost for what you want. You want artificial diamonds or real diamonds? Real diamonds will definitely cost you more. But then, if you are happy for the time being with American diamonds, go ahead with that. Disadvantage is expensive and produces a pulsed flow. If it is only single pump, we have seen pulse flow. We can take care having reciprocating pumps and a loop called pulse dampener, which we'll see now. Next. Here, we have seen this. So if this is how the piston goes ahead, and then one side to the column, another side to the reservoir. Second phase, till this is pumping, and that is the filling cycle. So one of the most common types of systems, unlimited reservoir system, because it's continuously filled. It's connected to the reservoir. Another problem is that produces variable pressure, must reverse stroke to deflate. Next. So reciprocating. See, you have reciprocating pumps with pistons, check valve, sapphire valve, because sapphire material is very chemically inert. That is why valve material also should be chemically inert. Otherwise, if it is basic acidic, it will get spoiled. Next. So this is how you get pulsating flow. This is how. Yes. Must be minimized. That would affect your sensitivity and decision detection level. You don't want pulsating flow. So pulses are reduced. Go back again. See the pulse size, and now this pulse size. So even having two reciprocating pumps, there is small pulse still existing. Right? So one approach to minimizing the pulses associated with reciprocating pump is absorb the peak of the pressure pulse and minimize the. So several approaches can be used. One of them, yes, is the solvent loop. This is pulse dampener, as it is called. It reduces pulse to almost negligible, and therefore flow passes through the tube. Possible contamination limited rate about plus minus 50 to 100 psi. So this is a magnified picture, but actually this is a very small, and you insist when you go to the lab to show you the pulse damper. Okay. Next. This is how a dual piston reciprocating pump for modern pneumatic tyre. Next. Single reciprocating, we have seen that. Next. For gradient. Hold on. Right. Now comes the question. I'll show you the column. This is your stainless steel narrow bore column. One side is fitted to the injection port and the other to the. Now when it is fitted onto the instrument, this stationary phase should never become dry. Otherwise the column gets spoiled. So when you complete your work in the evening, you keep the mobile phase moving at a very low mobile phase velocity, maybe 0.1 or 0.2 milliliters per minute, but it should be flowing continuously. Now these are the fittings through which you can fit in the column, one end and the other end, right? Now assuming there is a pumping system here, right, and to the injection port this column is connected. Pumping system is now giving you pulseless flow under high pressures moving through the column. This is the detector side. How would you introduce the sample? when the mobile phase is moving under high pressures, right? This column is connected to the injection port. She says, what is so great about it? You said no? Yes. He said, what is so great about it? Remove this nut bolt, use syringe and put the sample. Is it a good solution? Huh? Why? By that time, a lot of mobile phase will be wasted. And introduction of the sample will also not be. That is why we have shown that 6-valve port valve. You know that it is the sample is introduced into that loop, and by changing just the settings, first you allow only the mobile phase to pass through, then you inject the sample, it goes into the loop, change the position, now the mobile phase goes through the loop, then to the column. A fixed volume is introduced, and then the solutes are separated. You know how much this column costs? We cannot pack it in the laboratory like we can do the GC columns. We cannot. A minimum price of 15,000 only. So if you damage this, you be ready to pay 15,000 rupees, because GNIRD in Khalsa College cannot afford to buy because of the errors on the part of the students. So this is, we have a universal detector called rheodine injector, which helps us to inject the sample onto the column without disturbing the flow of the mobile phase from the pumping system. So with rheodine injector, we have achieved small sample size. Next. Okay. So what we have achieved so far, click one by one. Click just one. Fast analysis, yes or no? Yes. Small sample size, yes, because of the rheodine injection. Versatility, different types of solutes can be separated using different stationary phase. Efficiency, yes, because you are using small particle size, and therefore column separation efficiency is high, and it is non-destructive. Okay? Next slide. Are you happy now? Now you have to say yes or no. I don't mind any answer, but then it has to be unanimous. Are you happy now? Yes. How would you detect the solutes coming out of the column? So are you happy now? No. See, in gas chromatography, as soon as the solutes come out, we have seen that they are detected and quantitated with sensitive and specific or universal detectors. DCD was universal, other detectors were very sensitive but specific. My question, and this question is 5 chocolates. So, it must be a difficult question. Obviously. Can we use the detectors of GC for detection of solutes in liquid chromatography? Why is to be shared? But that question is not yet complete. No is the correct answer. Why not?
Because the solutes are in the liquid phase, and the detector only detects the liquids.
See, the basic thing is that in GC, the solutes entering into the detector are obviously in the gaseous state. And now in liquid chromatography, they are entering into liquid state, and therefore it is just impossible to use the same detectors which we used in GC in modern liquid chromatography? Answer is correct. And then he says, oh, I had the same answer, but I have no five more chocolates with you. So, in next 5 minutes, because I think this hall is booked after some time. Okay, GC detectors cannot be used. They cannot be used. What next? Is it forget about detectors is your answer? Yes? Forget it. There, we have separated, no? बस हो गया अभी 11 बज गए चलो ऐसा नहीं होता with 5 minutes discussion today we can continue tomorrow. So what type of detectors you can think of? Please, I'll give you a hint. We have solutes which are non-polar in nature. They could be organic, inorganic, right? They could be polymeric. We have polar solutes. We can have semi-polar solutes. We can have ionic solutes. We can have large molecules. And we can have biological solutes also by affinity chromatographic mode. So what kind of detectors can you think of? Any guess? And I can tell you one thing. You have used many of these detectors.
Concentration. So concentration.
UV detectors or colorimetry. Colorimetry, if solutes have to be colored, right? And through stainless steel column they apply, I don't know whether they're colored or not. Of course we can see them when sample is prepared. So, according to you therefore, I mean according to her, which you have agreed, UV visible detector can be used. What arrangement you need to fit in that UV visible detector? Because please see, the mobile phase solutes are moving with mobile phase which is also moving under high pressures, and therefore your optics should be arranged in such a way that they will withstand high pressure, because until the solutes reach the detector there is a danger of exposure to high pressure. Anyway, you can always say, see, that is not our job. I have suggested UV visible. You come and you do whatever you can do and give me ready-made detector then. Given. What type of solutes can you detect and analyze using UV visible spectrophotometer? Yes. This is our last question for today.
Which can absorb UV light. Which can absorb UV light.
Yes. What she says is right. A solute to be detected by UV visible must have sufficient absorbance in the visible and UV region. Is it not? Unless the solute have absorption in the UV visible region, there is no question of absorption of light and hence detection of the solutes. Right? So, is UV visible detector a universal detector? Is UV visible detector a specific detector? Yes. So, we will end today's discussion by saying that there are different detectors to be fitted in at the other end of the column in modern liquid chromatography for detection of solutes of particular type. The first detector, as she said, UV visible, is able to detect and quantitate solutes which have sufficient absorption. Weak absorption hoga to obviously you know that the response will be also weak. So sufficient absorption in the UV visible region, and therefore it is not a universal detector, it is a specific but sensitive detector, because you know you usually can go to BPM or even sub.